So, welcome back to the first Theatres of Dreams Extra Time of 2026. Fresh from Panto and fresh from many other things at Christmas. You have your usual lineup of retrobates on this one. Coming live from centre of Manchester is Don Bars in what looks like the Starship Enterprise. If you had seen him 5 minutes ago, it looked like he'd just come off stage. Richard Irvine's coming to us from south of the Greater Manchester area, and me, Rod Maxwell, as usual as well. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. He's behind you. He's
Oh, you just,
behind you.
I was just going to say, there's a Man City player behind you and go, oh, yes, there is. Oh, no, there
Oh
isn't.
no, there is.
Oh, it could be Semenyo, couldn't it? If
It could,
he's just
it could
signed.
be, it could be Dom's new neighbour, yes.
No,
I'll be carrying his bags. I'm waiting in the wings to see if I get an arrival. Seriously, there's a couple of spare penthouses, so I'm waiting to see who's coming in. I'll let you know
Oh,
later. Hot off the
oh,
press.
he's the man with the goss, I have to say. Well, I was just wondering, Dom, if anybody moved out, if you like, in this last week. You didn't have any ex-Manchester United managers living in your penthouse suite.
No, no, we've got the goalkeeper. Your reserve goalkeeper is here. He's a very nice guy. But no, I don't think the United. I don't think the United players can afford to live here. I think that's the problem. I think
Well,
that's the problem.
I'll tell you what, Ruben Amorim can afford to live there now with the payoff that he's got.
he looks very happy all of a sudden, doesn't he? He looks
He
very
looks
happy.
he looks very happy. Well, let's just start with that, okay? Because I'm interested. I have talked this subject to death. I'm actually interested in the other view from other people, external, who don't necessarily like United and probably loving the turmoil. But what's your take on what's been happened over the weekend? What he said in the press, and then what I see is the inevitability of the decision on Monday morning. But what's your take on it, guys?
Rich,
I think it's just yet another experiment gone wrong. It's like a school classroom experiment that's just gone wrong again in a long line of school experiments of managers. I mean, the goodness, somebody was going through this the other day on the media. I'd forgotten some of the ones,
mm,
like the one that became, oh, Rodney, you'll have to help me out, but the one that became before the ex
Eric
Ajax one,
Ten
the one,
Hag.
yeah, the one that became, he was, there was a caretaker manager before
Yes.
that.
Ralph.
Ralph
Yes,
Rangnick.
Ralph. And now they're talking about Ole coming back, and then the Fletcher's, there for the moment, and then you're talking about waiting therefore till the summer, till the World Cup's finished to see who you can poach. But man, what a mess!
I think there's been 10 managers stroke interim managers in the 12 years or so since Alex Ferguson left. There's a wonderful graphic which we've used on the show earlier this week of the 10 guys going from Moisey all the way through to Ruben Amorim and including the interims as well. And you sort of think, wow.
Actually, before Dom speaks, after the Arsenal Liverpool match last night, they had a really good discussion. It was Sturridge, Neville, and Keane about the situation and who would and what they would do now. And Neville just looked forlorn, really, and and Sturridge was saying, talking about asking Ole to come back, and you paid him 10 million to go,
Yeah.
and then yeah, Keane surprised me by saying if he could choose anyone, he had a long think about it, and then he said Eddie Howe, and that surprised me. Not convinced he's the right fit, but Keane seemed to think he was. But he's won something. He said he's got. I tell you what, Keane did say, which is interesting. He's got a very calm demeanor. Eddie Howe, not Keane. He said because that was the joke at the moment. But they said that he liked Eddie Howe's calm demeanor and the way his football's pretty good. He's won something, and he's got Newcastle, up towards the right end of the table. Not sure Eddie Howe's would be the choice for myself, but what does Dom think?
Oh, I think the original question. I think this is where United are again, without rubbing salt in the wounds, which is none of. I think we're all surprised about the timing, but the concept of Manchester United having a rift with a manager and things happening out the blue is just par for the course. And so,
Mm.
as a non-United fan, you just you don't even give it. Can I be honest? I don't even give it that much airtime, which is a real sort of damning assessment on it,
It
because
is.
That was
It really is.
that was almost Neville and Keane. He says, I'm actually just getting." Neville said, "I'm just actually
Bored.
getting tired of talking about this all the time."
I think where they go, the timing seems odd. They backed him. Yeah, he'd done well at a club in Europe, but I would argue that that's no different to your Glasners at Palace and that sort of level of manager, the Bournemouth manager, even the Brentford manager, the Sunderland manager. There's a load of these new breed, all got quite a similar behaviour going on, and they're all doing very well in the Premiership. But they won't give them a go, but they'll give a guy a go from Portugal, who I would argue is the same level, right? So I don't really, then they keep with him, they take the flak, they don't change it, and then they change him out the blue. So again, the timing's odd. I just think, again, and we've said this before, it is such an enormous job for two reasons: the size of the club, fundamentally. That it's got to be somebody that can cope with the level of a Real Madrid. It has to be. It's got to be someone with really wide shoulders. So I automatically go for of course, there's clearly in hindsight been mistakes. Did Ollie, as much as we took the mickey out of Ollie's at the wheel chance, actually he did all right, didn't he? Right?
Yeah.
With what he had. And he was doing it in an era of the shadow of the greatest City teams of all time. And some of the greatest teams of all time, right? And he got second or third. And, I'm not saying it was flourishing football like under Fergie, but it was better. Ralph Rangnick knew what he was talking about and didn't get given a chance, and everything he said has come to fruition. So I just think it's either an Ancelotti, because he's the only man I can think about in world football that's done it everywhere, in every country, and has that is that demeanour you're talking about. He is probably, for me, the go-to man. Now, if they don't want to go with that because he's getting older and it's not a long-term manager for 5 to 10 years, but none of them are, then
that is the problem, isn't it, Dom?
Yeah.
Ancelotti's maybe age, because I think in the group discussion I mentioned the other day, he's done it everywhere, and he's gone to the pressure cooker of Real Madrid. He's won. He's done one stuff in England already. So this was what Neville was saying. You should have someone who's already used to the Premier League, and that's why he narrowed it down to Ancelotti and Thomas Tuchel. And he said maybe that's who they're waiting for, one of those two. But strangely, no one mentioned this young Brentford manager that seems to be doing excellent. The Bournemouth manager, the Brighton manager. No one seemed to mention them. So if you're looking for long term, you'd be looking at more of a younger manager, wouldn't you?
So can I ask, before we get into potential people to come in, because I definitely would be interested in your view, but do you think that over the weekend that Ruben Amorim architected his own exit by what he said prior to the weekend's game on the Friday press conference and what he said afterwards? Because I look at what he was saying, and I actually fundamentally believe that they had no other option but to get rid of him because of what he said. And he knew that, and he's manufactured his exit.
Yeah, but the strange thing is about it now, I mean, he's let's face it, he said some odd things throughout his tenure. I mean, he could have gone easily last in November. I thought he was teetering then. Then he managed to steady the ship, beat Liverpool, got some reasonable results. And recently you've played okay. The previous game to the last one, where you switched to a different back four, it seemed like, oh right, he's a bit more flexible. But then he had this meltdown again, didn't he? And I don't know. He obviously, this thing about being manager and coach seemed to be extremely important to him now. But all these football clubs are now have, as Dom has mentioned before, and yourself, have this structure, a far different structure now than we did when I grew up in the 80s, where you had just the manager and probably the owner. It's all very different now, isn't it? And
the coaches, these coaches you're talking about, can I be honest? They get eaten alive. I think they get eaten alive. All those really good up and coming managers, you could have their careers ruined and you never see them again, right? If they go into that, it's got to be somebody who has done it and got the T-shirt. And if that means that it's an Ancelotti for a couple of seasons to develop it ready for another era of, let's say, Tuchel after he's finished at England or whatever. I don't know how long he's kicking around with England, but it's got to be someone of that stature, because Tuchel, whether you like him or not, has managed Bayern, Chelsea, now a top international squad with England. So, yeah, obviously Ancelotti is just like, goes without saying. So after that, if you are talking about in our league, then I do think I understand the Eddie Howe, the calmness. He's managing a colossal club up in the northeast. And remember, they got given money, right? And he could have easily been pushed out by some big name.
Yes.
Right. And they are the richest club in the world, aren't they? Technically, by ownership, I think, Newcastle, give or take. And they can't spend it because of the fair play malarkey. But Eddie Howe has coped very well in a cauldron of expectancy, and he's delivered. I mean, there's only 3 trophies to win, and he won one, first one in 50-odd years. So I think he does have the shoulders and calmness to handle a really big club. So if you had to pick someone from the Premiership now, I would say Eddie Howe is a really good shout, and it is an upgrade from Newcastle. Sorry,
it was interesting. It was interesting. Keane saying that, and I do like Keane as a pundit. He said you've got to have someone that when he walks into the dressing room, the top players, as he always likes to say, the top players move forward and on the edge of their bench and want to listen to the new guy and want to be impressed. This is what slightly concerns me regarding this guy that's gone to Chelsea, whether he will have that.
Liam Senior.
Yeah,
whether he'll have that X factor, I'm not so sure. We'll find out, won't we? But again, that's another one, of course, we haven't mentioned yet. Chelsea getting rid of their manager.
Well, and look at Celtic, right? It's 4 weeks, Nodsey was in for 4 weeks and he got sacked. It opens up for me the topic of, you've got professional firms, professional companies, and in what other industry or walk of life do they get so many appointments wrong? I mean, this is like an Apple or a Microsoft or any of those companies, right? Not being able to do succession planning and put in like the CEO or the head of strategy or whatever, right? And football clubs, I think, have got a very, very bad track record of making appointments at the very senior levels. They can get it wrong at the player level because you've got so many players you just evolve them through. But this appointment and actually Amarin's appointment, yeah, you've got to get it right. You've got to be strategic. And actually, I look at it and think, what are the characteristics that you need? What are the criteria for being a Premiership manager, number one, and a Premiership manager of a big club, right? Which United undoubtedly are, like Liverpool, like Arsenal, like many other clubs, like City.
Thank you.
And you turn around and you say, well, actually, it's not just about the playing side of it. It's about the handling of the media. It's about the messaging. It's about how you manage the stakeholders. There's so many other aspects of it.
I understand that, Rodney, with other companies you're trying to make a comparison with, but there is something I think unique about being a Premiership manager is that there can't be that many people who actually can succeed, because you only have to look at the Ange and the Sean Dyches that seem to be going round in a merry-go-round, a bit like old, Big Sam as well, that not many people can do it. I like the Guardiolas and the Klopps. Even Arne Slot now, he's struggling in the second series. But Liverpool, strangely, what Dom said there about going for someone who's Klopp, Borussia Dortmund, second biggest team in Germany, third biggest team maybe. He was a bit of an unknown. Slot, no one had heard of Arne Slot. So they tend to take a few more risks, I think. Guardiola was someone a bit like Ancelotti. He'd already been there, done that.
Yeah.
Liverpool, I think, do recruit better, Rodney. Plus, they don't sack as quickly. Okay, they've had a few. They've had a few mistakes. Look,
you
they've
got
got
it wrong badly in the 90s and noughties.
Oh yeah, no. Listen, you can understand why they went for Souness. You can understand why they went for Roy Hodgson. It just didn't work out for Roy. But actually, they haven't got it wrong. That Brendan Rodgers, did a similar job to say Eddie Howe's doing. He, I think, won them maybe a trophy, and he also got them to second in the league. You can say
should have won him. He should have won him a league.
Yeah, so Rodgers got very, very close. In fact, he was looking quite comfortable at Liverpool at one point. I think, I'm not just saying it, but I think we do tend to get that top job a bit better than United. You're in a tricky one at the moment.
What frustrates me as a fan of United, of course, is that we're not learning, and we have never learned from Liverpool's experiences in the 90s. I mean, how do you replace a Shankly, etc., right? And you struggled with it massively. And you had numerous different, like the pattern that you had during the 90s and the noughties is very similar to us, where you chose club favorites, fans favorites, etc. And again, you sort of think, well, look, guys, this is what big organizations do all the time. They appoint leaders. What you do is you write the criteria down, and you actually were very clear what the role is. Is the role a coach? Role a coach? And therefore, should the football department, should our head of football or our head of football strategy be stepping up more? Because I think the problem has been that Ruben's had a lot of grey people around him that haven't protected him and didn't help him. And then they've sacked them, and this is why it was very interesting. He used the word, I am the manager at the weekend. He wasn't the manager. He was the coach. He was hired as a coach.
But when you're trying to, maybe you've had enough, maybe you look like you'd had enough.
I think.
And you're trying to, like you say, architect your own. When you've been sacked, you're getting 10 million quid. That's why That's why he looks so happy. He looked as happy as Dom does every time he leaves Bowers Towers every morning.
I think he looked.
I don't leave.
If you look at the photo, if you look at the photographs of him as he exited his nice Cheshire house this week,
with his
relieved. The weight of the pressure was off his shoulders, and he's got 10 million quid in his pocket. It's extraordinary. But I come back to the fact that as much as this is big news for United, we've never learned from our mistakes, and the industry of football has a really bad track record of doing it. And Nancy up in Celtic is a classic example. I mean, people, in some ways, they're lucky that the United things happened this week, because that should be bigger news than it is. The lad was in for 4 weeks. 4 weeks.
Yeah. It's a farce, isn't it? But can I just jump on that one? That bringing in Martin O'Neill, right? We're back to the elder statesman who knows what he's doing. Now, of course, he's not managed for ages, right? But I always felt he left the game too early from a managing point of view. I always thought he was a very good manager. And I always thought it was a shame for football that he didn't carry on and come back more often and do very well in the Premiership. He did great. Wherever he's been, he's never failed, I don't believe. And he'll go and probably win Celtic that title, right? But there's also a thing there. You talk about this recycling of managers. Like, why the new breed? A footballer has let's say a 10-year career, of which they're probably really, really hot for about 5 or 6. And then obviously injuries and age catch up. Management, coaching, whatever you want to call it these days, actually is not the same. And those guys have got a much longer career because they're starting to coach now in their early 30s. That means they can go on for 40 years, right? And actually, the older they get, even if they've failed or relegated teams, an Allardyce, a Dyche, whatever, they'll be classed as having great value because of the knowledge and experience they've got. So they'll get to reinvent themselves again all the time. Like you're quite right. Like, if you've been a failed manager, why the hell would somebody else take them on? Because they've been in the Premiership and they know what it's about, and they might learn from their mistakes and they know more next time round. And then they'll have a good phase somewhere. David Moyes, look at the career he's had for God knows how long. So it's the older statesmen. If you go with the most successful managers, Arteta's getting older. He's still young, but again, it's back in. So your Liverpool argument's valid about sticking with the plan, right? And you've changed your manager, but not crazy amounts. United and Chelsea sit in their own category. right? They're just, it's lunacy. And then Arsenal have stuck with Arteta. He's had flack, whether it's been about his eyebrows or whether it's been about his attitude on the side and his over emotiveness. But they're going to win the title, and good on the club, whether you like it or not, because the reason they're going to win the title is they've backed the plan and been patient and stuck with it. Yeah. And those are the differences. City, we've had a very, very dominant period, but we're not sitting there going pep out, are we? We're not doing that. There'll be some idiots in the crowd, but we're not doing that. It's like, what's the plan? Who is next? Make sure we get it right.
It's interesting because they were asking Pep the other day about I'm not terrible with names, but the manager who's just left Chelsea, the fact that he's been sitting, possibly, and he said, "Well, I've got another year contract. I'm on good money. I have no reason to even think about leaving here." And I, with these new signings that City are making at the moment, it's almost as if Pep thinks maybe with these recent couple of draws that they've had, which they should have won, by the way. That it looked like he could have possibly. He was thinking possibly he could win the league this year, and then he could then bow out a year early. I think now he's planning for next season to have one last hurrah. They're talking about Gahey coming. You lad from Bournemouth's obviously just come. People are already saying again, a player that they maybe don't even need. It's only because of these injuries or Mamouche going to the African nations. Again, are they just buying for the buying sake? But it's Gahey's an interesting one, isn't it? It's Gahey, whoever Gahey goes to, that's going to be a really interesting choice of that player, because obviously City wants him, Arsenal probably, Liverpool, possibly a Real Madrid. The thinking that's going on in that lad's head at the moment must be very, very interesting.
He can go where he wants, can't he, within reason? But the issue would be, and this is what you don't know behind the closed doors, I've been banging this drum for a bit, which is, I understand he's running his contract down. We all get that. And the lad wants to probably pick where he wants to go himself, because he seems a very forthright guy. Speaks incredibly well, doesn't he? I mean, to me, he's like, if we didn't have other people, he would be England captain of the future very soon. He's just brilliant on and off the pitch, and there are rare commodity players like that. He probably fits definitely in the Declan Rice level at least, where he's going to be worth £100 million defender, I would argue, right? And maybe 80, but if somebody really wanted him, you'd go for it. But the
problem is because he's coming towards the end of his contract, he won't go for that huge fee.
But that's the point. But why? So if he was on a 5-year deal at Crystal Palace now, would we not all be clamouring to get hold of him? We've all got the money. Let's remember, we've all got the money. We can all do that. You bought Wirtz for 120. We can buy Grealish for 100. Arsenal can do it if they wanted to. But we've got this psychological thing where maybe it's the accountants and the solicitors going, well, we don't need to pay that. You're going to miss out. If City go knocking at, say, 70 million now. No, but why? If he was on a 5, we're only saying he as a player, is he worth 70 million as a player, not his contract? As a player, he's worth 70 million. So pay.
And that's why Palace have reached a bit of a plateau, haven't they? The results have been poor recently. So they're probably thinking, right, we're going to struggle to get into Europe now. So we need to cash in now and get some money for him rather than running down his contract. Because even the manager now is saying, I wouldn't be surprised now if we do sell him in January.
He has been linked with so many clubs. It's almost like he's been floated around, passed around like a parcel.
But actually, this is an interesting point. Dom or yourself might want to clarify this. Because he's got only 6 months left on his contract, I believe he can talk to clubs outside the Premier League, like Real Madrid, and make a pre-contract agreement. But he can't do that with a English club. Right.
I'd buy him now, Nathan. For us, Liverpool need him, right? So you should be pushing for him. It's going to come down to, is he attracted by the Anfield history, pull, and the fact you're competitive, obviously, but is he going to be sucked into the red mist? Unfortunately, United haven't got enough of an attractive offering for him, so they can forget it. Chelsea is too chaotic, I think. Gay is going to want stability. And so the questions that he would be asking of City, rightly so, is what's the plan? If I'm going to move lock, stock and barrel up from London and all of my life there, because don't forget, that's still a big draw. You'd argue Arsenal, if they didn't have a zillion brilliant defenders, would be the logical one, because he's a London lad and they do tend to trade internally in the city.
Yes.
To get him to move up here in sunny Manchester changes everything. It's great up here, but it's not London for a lad who's been brought up in London. But if he fancies working under Pep, and Pep goes, look, I'm going to be here for another 18 months. This is a plan. Nathan Aké's on his way in the summer.
John Stones will be gone. It's going to be you, Diaz, Vardial, Nico O'Reilly, Kushinov, and it will get better. Then we need that dominance to be able to compete at the top of the table again, because our squad can't cope. So we do need more players. It's not buying for buying's sake. We are thin, which is, look at some of the results we've had. You can see that he's playing the same 11 to 13 players all the time, because he hasn't either got the numbers or he doesn't trust the other players because they're not really quite good enough to compete at the top of the league. It's true. It's not a poor old City. We play with a small squad, and it's a little too small. And you look at the Roman army of Arsenal, they've had a load of injuries. I'm not saying that they've got away with it, but they can handle it because they've got such a great squad. Keane again, Rodney, last night, your mate Keane was saying, when a player going into a club was saying, who else you buying? He was going, who else you buying? Shouldn't matter to a player. It should be, what can I do? And what energy am I going to give? I shouldn't be thinking about, maybe a plan is fine, what Dom just said. What's your plan moving forward? But don't start asking me about who else you're going to buy. You should only be concentrating on yourself and you keeping yourself in the team.
But it is a different era, and I've just been having a dog walk with somebody who I used to work with, and we were talking about the workplace and how different that is as well. And I think football is not any different to the business environment. Is that there is a change in culture, and there's a change where I think a lot of influence and a lot of the weight has been thrown around individuals as opposed to leadership in the club, etc. So I think this is a cultural trait that's going on, and football just happens to be the epitome of it, but not the exclusion of it.
If you use Haaland, remember Haaland had like a grading scheme. He talked quite openly about this with his dad when he first come to City. He could have gone anywhere. Gay's not Haaland, but he could go anywhere. Barca would want him, Madrid, Bayern Munich. I mean, he could go anywhere. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, you do look as a player, I would, and go, right, if I'm moving and I'm now, how old do you reckon Gay is? What, mid-20s? This is the time for me to win some trophy and get legendary status wherever I go and leave my career as a big winner. I want to go somewhere where there is, he wants to know that Pep's not leaving it in tatters. He wants to know that Slot's not going to get sacked next Wednesday. He want to know.
He nearly came to Liverpool. They made a video for it and everything. So he must have chosen. No, they did. They did. It was only the manager at the last second pulled the plug. So he must have wanted to go to Liverpool. So I want to know what's changed in his mind. If he doesn't go to Liverpool, what's changed his mind? Because
maybe the video was an episode of Brookside.
Yeah, but a few weeks ago I was saying, "Oh God, we need Gate." But actually, watching Liverpool last night defensively, Konate seems to have pulled his socks up. Van Dijk seems to have sharpened his tools again. Solid. They were really solid last night defensively. Konate is looking the player he was last season again. So Gay might be thinking, if I come in January, am I going to get into the...
Well, let's talk about the results since the turn of the year, because I had to say both your clubs have been slightly draw experts, actually. You started the new year, Richard, with a draw against Leeds, a scoreless draw against Leeds, and then you followed that up with a 2-2 draw at Fulham, and then last night was a 0-0. And I guess the question it leaves me with is anybody able to catch Arsenal, or is it now Arsenal have managed to get through that January window or Christmas period, and it's really about their momentum to the end of the season? Because City, again, what was it last night? Midweek was 1-1 against Brighton, Dom.
Haaland had
1-1 against Chelsea. You know,
Haaland had an absolutely gilt-edged chance to make it 2-1. I couldn't
so
believe he
it's,
missed that.
so it's interesting. Your results for both your teams since January have basically been the draw experts. Really, it's nobody's
Yeah,
putting
this
you
this
a push.
unbeaten run that we've got now, 10 games.
Doesn't mean anything when it's
It's
draws,
and
Richard.
it doesn't, because you're losing 2 points each time. It's
Yeah,
massive. So, like, I think City have drawn 3 recently. That's 6 points they've lost to Arsenal. Were teetering, weren't they?
Yeah,
2 points it was down to, and I actually thought City,
yeah.
they're coming back
I
into
it's
thought
it.
they would
it,
pull, I thought they would wind them in. I thought the pressure of City being up their backside
Yeah,
but I honestly, I've said this in numerous things. I think Arsenal, having weathered through the December window, I think their squad's stronger this season compared to last season. Arteta has learned from it. I actually think it's going to be very hard for anybody to catch them between now and the end of the
and
season.
and you know what? That's without the striker. Remind me.
Gokres.
Yeah, he hasn't even made an impression yet.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't at all.
But this is a functional. I call it a Roman army when I'm talking off with my friends and stuff. It's an incredible back five with an incredible substitutional base behind it. They lost Saliba and Gabriel, like we've lost ours, right? And they covered them with brilliant defenders. They've got such a great selection at the back. But then I think, can I be really honest? I'm not being salty. This isn't the greatest Premiership title-winning team when Arsenal win it. Let's not get carried away. Some people are saying they'll win this and then they'll win it for years. That is nonsense.
No,
They will
okay.
win it. They will win it because everyone else is in transition. And they have the best, most stable squad. But I really rate Declan Rice. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think Odegaard is a proper baller. And I think Saka's a proper baller. Right? I'm not going to criticise top players.
Yep.
After that, I'm sorry, it's bang on average. Don't give me Zubimendi is brilliant. He ain't no Gundo, right? He's just in a brilliant jigsaw puzzle machine, right? Rico Lewis could sit in there right now and look like Zubimendi. Sorry, it's just okay, right? But he's got such an incredible framework. Whereas City, funnily enough, we're talking about, City squad can't cope. We've lost the defenders with injuries. What a mess. Actually, it's not a defensive problem, is it? The 3 games that we're talking about that we've drawn, we should have won them all. Rich said it not so long ago. We should have won them all. We were not ruthless. And Haaland and Phil Foden particularly have been right off it. And that's not a criticism. They're shattered. Because our squad is completely put out for the same games. Nico O'Reilly, that last-minute goal against Chelsea because the lad's spent. They're spent. We've got Rodri having to play 90 minutes on his first game back against Chelsea. He shouldn't have played 90 minutes. And then we're back on again 3 days later. There's another thing there about too much football right now. That helps big squads. So Arsenal's trump card is they got their lucky breaks with those daft own goals against Wolves just before Christmas when they went off it. This is marginal differences. They were terrible. Right? I don't think they're fluid at all. Bar smashing somebody with 5 goals not so long ago, I can't remember who it was. It's not champagne football. They beat Wolves with 2 own goals.
Last night Liverpool had no proper striker last night. Ekitike, Isak. They had Wirtz kind of just a lightweight Kenny Dalglish up front that never really. He was okay, but they were there for the taking. I thought they were there for the taking last night, and
I didn't see the game, but was it a good match? If you're objectively, when you're talking about top of the table type stuff, was it a good game?
Well, I only enjoyed it because I thought we were going to lose, and for the first 20 minutes, I thought, "Oh, it's coming, it's coming," and then we hit the crossbar just before. Connor Bradley, sadly, that's another thing I want to mention later. Hit the crossbar. Oh goodness me! Liverpool could have taken the lead. It was very. But the second half, Rodney. Sorry, Liverpool played with braveness, possession. They kept the ball. And actually, I appreciated watching the match because I thought Arsenal, it was as if Liverpool were playing at home. Strange game, really. Arsenal just didn't seem to want to lose the game. No, they've got this gap now, and we're happy to take the point.
You
which is
had no
bizarre.
Opta says you had no shots on target. You had 8 shots, none of them on target. They had 9 shots, 4 on target. I mean,
Yeah,
that
but you could, Dom. I think if Dom watched it, you could say that Liverpool came the closest to scoring by hitting that. I know it's not classed as a shot on target, but the keeper was off his, was way out. Bradley tried to chip him, and it nearly went in. That's the closest it came because Arsenal didn't really come close to scoring themselves.
The Arsenal, the Arsenal TikTok guy, is it Rory, the one who's quite sensible? It's not like Arsenal TV, and he was frustrated last night when I listened to his post because he was saying just didn't go for it. Like, I'm not being funny. You should have smelt blood and gone for it. Last night
Yeah.
they beat you. They beat you. It's all over. I still think it's all over. Everybody thinks I'm just taking the heat off City. It's a season too soon. We've recovered very well. We've been on a brilliant run. But I know what it takes. Just like you do from the 90s and the 80s, guys. You know what it takes to win a title. It's not being, pompous. I know that City squad is not ready to win a title. So,
are we making a mistake, guys? Are we making a mistake and giving Villa a disservice by not mentioning them today on this program? Because they're sitting in third. They're sitting in third, defensively good, scoring goals.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right. Are they the black sheep of this, or the red herring, or whatever you want to call it?
I don't. No, I think Arsenal are going to win it. I mean, I think Villa could get second because City will stutter. We can add these players, but they've not had any pre-season. They don't know how we play. I mean, you're hoping that Semenyo, just because he's a good player, is going to rock up and score half a dozen goals. It doesn't work like that, does it? So we'll see what happens. I'm already going right. Okay, get Rodri fit till summer. Bernie will have to go in the summer, unfortunately. Who can I just say is getting flack off City fans at the moment that is absolutely ridiculous.
Is this Bernardo Silva?
Honestly, lack of ball knowledge in the crowd. You tell me. I tell you, we're spoiled brats in the crowd. They're doing my head in at home at the moment. I know it's not great when you're not winning and it's cold and we're all walking over there on a freezing Wednesday night in January, fed up with ourselves. But dear me, some of the spoilt, entitled comments.
Surely you're sitting on heated seats. Surely.
Of course I am, with a blanket. But it's you're just listening to nonsense. Like Bernardo Silva will go, but they're saying that he's spent and he looks terrible. I mean, what game are they watching? But it's because it's just not all happening. We have been blunt up front. We've scored 1 goal from open play in them 3 games, and Haaland, you can't criticise him. He scored his 150th City goal already. Unbelievable. He's got how many goals this season? He carried us until the end of November, didn't he? He carried us as a one-man machine. Do you know what? He's gone off the boil. So it happens, but we can't bring Mamouche in. We can't bring anybody else in because we don't have the squad. And we'd miss some cities. You're quite right.
And Dom, this is all before we go to the FIFA World Cup this year. And
there's too much football.
I think you're right. And what are these players going to be like come September, October, November next year when they won't have had a break at all? And as much as people can turn around and say, well, they're professional, they get paid a lot of money, that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. There's only so much your body can take. There's only so much you can take. And we've talked about this before in this podcast. It does seem to be there's too much football. You're flogging not a dead horse, but you're flogging people here that people feel that it's okay to because they're getting paid lots of money. It doesn't really come into it.
There's a whole podcast we could do, guys, on where football is with media, TV viewing. Be careful what you wish for. We've brought Sky in many years ago, all this live football. Let's be truthful. We will love it on a cold, wet day that we can go back-to-back games on various channels and watch 4 on the bounce if we want. We can, and then 1 every night. Brilliant, isn't it? Amazing. You try being the fan base, trying to go to the games. I'm telling you, the atmosphere at City is appalling. Appalling. I'll call it out. Away from home, amazing. I'm not saying our fan base is appalling. I'm saying the atmosphere right now is flat. We're waiting for the team to get us going. It's cold. We've had no game over Christmas, and then we got Sunday. We got 5:30, and I think I don't know if I sent you both the picture. Who is doing the fixtures to expect Brighton and Hove Albion fans to come up to Manchester on a Wednesday night at the first week after Christmas when we're all going back to work in mixed weather? What is all that about? We had Chelsea on Sunday at 5:30. Those lads have got to get back down to London. Forget rivalry. Fan bases deserve better than that. And there's a whole podcast we could do on. The amount now. What does City do? We've got a FA Cup game on Sunday against Exeter. We've got the semi-finals against Newcastle. What's good for the tournaments is City putting out the best teams. What do we now do? Do we have to just put out the kids against Newcastle in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup now? Because what do we do?
We were the only Boxing Day fixture, and that's because of TV. 8 o'clock on Boxing night, and you feel for the people who've travelled from overseas, and it didn't, it maybe is where the club is at the moment. Boxing Day, a 2 o'clock kickoff, that feels better, but because that's a bit traditional, but. And we were the only Premier League side to play, or our game was the only Premier League fixture on Boxing Day. That's just TV at the end of the day. That's just purely TV.
It is. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it, but it does mean that because of the quantity of games, obviously if you're a good team, you're playing all the time. The advantages with the teams are the better squads. We all know that Palace have got a good 11. Bournemouth can compete with anyone. There's some brilliant teams out there. Sunderland doing brilliant stuff. But when it's relentless, the only teams that favours ultimately is Arsenal and normally City. But City's squad isn't one.
So can I just say, Rodney? In past episodes, I've just thought I've given you a little bit of stick in United for letting players go, and they've been playing really well abroad, like McTominay, and you'll have to. The young strike, Hoyland, yes. I have to say, I've been picking up in the last few weeks what a great player Harry Wilson is for Fulham at the moment.
Isn't he?
A player that we haven't mentioned on this podcast, I don't think. Liverpool, he was at Liverpool, I remember him. And he was only quite a young player, and they sold him. Obviously one of these lads that couldn't quite break into the team or keep a first team place down. But my goodness, he is scoring goals at Fulham. Himself
7 goals and 4 assists. His 7 goals and 4 assists in the Premier League since the beginning of November.
Yeah, and they're all great goals. And also this Brazilian, again, my name's terrible. Brentford. Where do recruitment-wise, Brentford recruit all these amazing players? They must have an amazing scouting system. Incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is. And can we just say as well that you just say about the managers? Your Aston Villa point was really valid. That is done a remarkable job, and we didn't mention. I'm kicking myself. Why have we not mentioned Unai Emery as a potential Manchester United manager? Because I'll tell you what, I'd argue, pound for pound, he's manager of the season right now.
Now. No doubt. But I think. Would he move from Villa to us? Because you could argue actually Villa is a more stable club than United is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think he's a good guy, and a lot of people outside Man United wouldn't wish it on him because he looks like he's doing he was at Seville, wasn't he? And Seville obviously aren't huge Spanish teams, but he seems to be quite happy staying at that. I'd say Villa are a similar team to Seville, as in stature in the league, but he seems to be happy being entrusted, and he's also got a good relationship with the Villa hierarchy. They probably back him and say, listen, don't think your job's under pressure, you're doing an amazing job. And he probably just thinks, I'd rather have that than the United chaos any day.
But if you look at the table, I don't think I've ever seen the Premier League table like the way it is at the moment, and so compact in the middle. And you look at Villa, and it's only goal differences separating them and City, but the goal difference is quite consistent. It's 17 goal difference. So Villa clearly are leaking more goals and not scoring as many. But at the moment, the table is just all over the place. There are 11 points separating 17 to 6. Newcastle in 6th place with 32 points, Nottingham Forest at 21 points. You would say at the moment that the bottom 3 look like the bottom three at the end of the season. West Ham
Yeah.
at 14, Burnley at 13, Wolves we know are pretty much gone. You could easily say at the moment that actually Arsenal could trot all the way through to the end. City, Villa, and Liverpool probably. You sort of be interested to freeze frame the league as it is now, and apart from a bit in the middle. You could actually almost turn around and say, can you see it changing, really?
Well, that's a good point because Neville and Keane were both asked last night, do you think Liverpool will end up being higher than above United? And they both begrudgingly said, I think that Liverpool are going to end up above United. So you're right in saying that top four could be end up because Chelsea again,
and bottom three.
who's we don't know how Chelsea are going to cope with this new manager, and it looks a little bit chaotic as well. So they might be you might say Chelsea fifth. Well, then you've got Newcastle, haven't you? So Newcastle and Chelsea battling for fifth. I'd be happy Liverpool top four at the moment. I'd hope we get up to third. But Villa have got quite a big gap. Yeah, I mean you've got Isak out injured for a long time. Looked like Connor Bradley could be out for a long time. Need to get
Yeah, so normally that team that does very well, the new kids on the block, there's always one every season. They tend to fade.
Like Forest did.
Yeah, it happens every year. And not necessarily out of the top four, but certainly the best, they just hang on to fourth, like Newcastle or something. But I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. I think this Unai Emery Villa team is got a good squad. It's got good players on the bench. They're not in a zillion tournaments, I don't think. But it's interesting, isn't it, that, you look at Champions League, Arsenal have been very dominant. In fact, the English teams, City only had one mess up against Bayer Leverkusen and then went to Real Madrid and won. So even though we're not at it, is it that our league is incredibly deep in quality? Is it that the top teams are not as good? Yeah. The elite teams getting 95 points don't exist right now. I think this league will be won by Arsenal with 83. I think it'll be that low. Because I do. 83, 85 at a push. So they don't need to, I said this before, they don't need to get any more points than last season. So I think that's it. But the rest of it, the depth, there's some, you're trying to, I like a little bet on a Saturday about, and I'm struggling to predict. I'm really struggling. Look how many draws there are in the league table. Yeah. There's been a lot of draws over Christmas. I think that's because, again, too much football. Sometimes it's been brilliant, like a 2-2, a 3-3 occasionally, but more often than not.
Look, the match of the day of the week, the 4 games that were on, 3 were 0-0s.
Yes, too much football. That's what that is. So, in my opinion, they lose the sharpness in front of goal, and it all gets a little bit pedestrian. That's where I think it gets spoilt. But I think the league is deeper and better. I've seen teams come to our ground, and I've been impressed with how they play and the way they knock it round. And if you give them a chance, they take it. But I don't think the top. I think the table is pretty much what it's going to be, and that loses a bit of jeopardy, doesn't it? Which we all want some jeopardy.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Yeah, so I think it's going to be more about the cups actually this season now. I think City aren't out of it, but it's the hope that kills you. We're only 6 points behind. We're going to keep dropping points.
Do you know? It wouldn't surprise me that the press are changing the narrative because they think it's almost done. So let's look at a different narrative. And the narrative is around turmoil in clubs, etc.
I tell you what. If City get 3 wins on the bounce,
it's the pressure
and then Arsenal. I wasn't impressed with Arsenal last night. So
but
that striker's not firing. I just think it's not over yet.
Well, hopefully not, but it's interesting. It's funny. I ask a lot of United fans, who would you rather have win? And it's amazing how many of them don't want Arsenal to win. You would sort of think they don't want Liverpool to win. They probably prefer City over Arsenal. I don't get it myself, but it's a 90s thing.
I know. I tell you what it is. It's another big club that's been longer waiting for a title. So what you do is you always go with the team. You have to ridicule. If you're having a bad time, there's always somebody worse off than yourself. So that's what it is for me, is that Arsenal have been 20 odd years, which is farcical given what they've done. And it's quite funny that they've not won it yet, because they've had the greatest Arsenal teams they've ever had in the last few years, and they still haven't won a title because it's the wrong era. We've seen Leicester City win a title. We've seen average Man United teams win a title. We've seen City win it last on the 4th one that we won. That was not a great City team. It was just a dogged one because nobody else has really at it. And I think this is going to sound so salty. I do not believe the hype that this is an amazing Arsenal team. I think it's an incredible squad built on £1 billion that is a high class Leicester City. That's what
Yes,
it is.
But
It is a
they're
high class Leicester City.
They're grinding it out. Now, let's go to the weekend, because the FA Cup is often a welcome relief to both teams, managers, and fans as well. And I think all our teams are involved in the Premier League this weekend. It starts on Friday night, and the only Premier League team involved on Friday night is Nottingham away to Wrexham. That's a tidy little tie.
Oh, nice.
That's an interesting one. And Preston North End play Wigan at Friday night. Port Vale, Fleetwood Town, and Milton Keynes Dons at Oxford United. They're all 7:30s. And then on Saturday, there's a host of games, actually. Let's pick out some of the ones involving our teams. Guys, do you recognise who you're playing at the weekend? City, Exeter City. So it's the City versus City, the City of Manchester versus City of Exeter. This is a nice little tie for you guys.
They'll put out the kids for that, won't they, Dom?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm getting a game. Honestly, I think we'll put out an incredibly well. I mean, some first teamers will have to play, but yeah, we just need to get through it. Yeah,
you'll put your other goalkeeper in, won't you? The lad that you feel sorry for,
Trafford. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of all Premiership. There's a couple of all Premiership ties. Sorry, Dom.
Yeah, there's a guy called Max Elaine that played for City the other night. He brought him in from Watford. 20-year-old, looked fantastic. So keep an eye on him. He'll play tomorrow. Young dad.
Everton versus Sunderland is a 12:15 All Premiership game. Also All Premiership. Newcastle Bournemouth at 3:00. Salford City versus Swindon Town might be interesting. And Tottenham versus Villa is the 5:45 game. That's going to be an interesting one. And the evening game is Chelsea away to Charlton Athletic, an all London tie. It's going to be Liam Rosenior's first game as Chelsea boss. And then on Sunday,
Thomas Frank, by the way, will be hoping he gets through that, because they lost the other night 3-2. I think it was against Brentford, wasn't it, Dom? Great game. Tottenham looked, far more exciting, but they lost that 3-2. And if Spurs lose to Villa, pressure's going to start bubbling up on Thomas Frank.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, there is. You're absolutely right. And this Sunday, United play, Manchester United play Brighton Hove Albion at 4:30. Another All Premiership tie. Other interesting.
Money's on Brighton.
Leeds are away at Derby County at midday. And I think that's West Ham
Liverpool
play Queen's Park Rangers. Liverpool play on Monday night. You're playing Monday night. You've got Barnsley at home at 7:45. So
he'll put out the young. He'll put this Rio Ngagu out. A lot of Liverpool fans want to see him playing a lot more. It'd be nice to see some other people. Chiesa, of course, will probably get a start. It should be quite good.
So we'll have Fletcher at the wheel, probably. To be honest with you, at the moment, who knows who will have on at the wheel of United in the next couple of weeks. I have to say, I saw last night a bit of a scuffle at Arsenal. I thought it's like the 90s all over again.
That was terrible. Conor Bradley had obviously injured his knee, and is this what you're referring to?
Yes,
and
it is.
Martinelli tried to, first of all, he chucked the ball at him. Then he was kneeing him in the back to try and push him out. And then he physically tried to push him out. And the lad was obviously injured. He obviously thought he was trying to time waste. But Arne Slot said after this, anyone who knows Conor Bradley, and all these players know each other, it obviously hurt his knee. He's obviously hurt his knee quite badly. And then to try and push somebody off the pitch when they got a knee injury, I thought was shocking. It's really, really bad.
Right, I'm going to finish off because. Sorry, Dom, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Slot just on that as well said that he made a really valid point, which is the amount of time wasting. And he was backing Martinelli, going, he doesn't think Martinelli's a bad lad, though it did look terrible on the camera. That actually there is a real frustration, and we all see it with our clubs, that the feigning of injury and time wasting is a really common thing. You're quite right, Bradley. He did clearly hurt himself, but Slot made a really fair judgment, which is this is happening way too much, and he was giving Martinelli a little bit of leeway going, it is happening. It is happening. Our teams do it. Your teams do it. Everyone's at it. They've got to find a way of getting that out of the game, because it's just the dark arts that we don't need.
Yeah, especially keepers. We've talked about this because keepers know they don't have to go off.
Yeah.
Anyway,
by the way, Rodney, before we finish,
we
didn't actually ask you. Me or Dom didn't ask you. Like they asked Keane last night, they put him on the spot. But who would you like to be the next manager of Manchester United?
Yeah, great question.
I've been thinking about this, and it's not so much about the individual person, but it's more for me about the criteria. Because I look at this, and maybe I'm just too I'm like too corporate, if you like, but I think when you're recruiting anybody, you have a list of criteria of what you think you need, right? And you define the role first of all. So the first thing you got to ask yourself is, are we recruiting for a manager, or are we recruiting for a coach? And there's a big difference between the two, and therefore, who is that person going to be working for, and what terms are they going to be working under? Are they going to be given players? Are they going to have any say in transfers, et cetera, et cetera? So all that has to be sorted out. And then I think when it comes down to the criteria, I think what we were missing, and I'm disappointed that Ruben Amorim didn't get more support, and although he may not have accepted it, is if you're going to be a manager, you also have to be able to manage the press. You have to be able to manage your messages. And as much as that might sound very flauncy and flowery and whatever, all the good managers, in my view, have been able to manage the press really well.
That's a good point. Let me just in quickly, because they mentioned last night, I think Neville mentioned, says, you haven't got to start mentioning pundits in your press conferences as if you've been irked by a pundit. Ancelotti's wouldn't be mentioning me in a. He says you've got to be rise above all of that.
Exactly.
I'm just a pundit. You can't have managers getting really knocked by pundits. You've got to be. So anyway, go on. Who's the man?
I don't know the individual. I know, to be honest with Richard, I don't know. And the problem we've got is in a World Cup year, and if you're going to be looking for capable coaches or capable managers, some of them will be in the World Cup, possibly.
So maybe Ancelotti.
To be honest, the problem I got with Ancelotti, I think he would be great for a couple of years and probably keep things more stable than they've been. But do you look for something beyond that? I really don't know, Richard. I really don't know. I'm more in the opinion that actually you first of all got to decide: is it a manager or a coach? If it's a coach, then you got to make sure that the people at the top are looking after them. And I think there's an element to which Ruben Amorim didn't have a great relationship with Jason Wilcox. There was a lot of challenge there. Didn't have a great, So I don't really know. But
who is this? Who is this Jason Wilcox?
Well, he used to play for Blackburn.
Yeah, but who is he now? What's his role?
He's like a director of football or something like that.
And he's obviously not well liked by some people.
No, it's only Ruben Amorim, really.
All right.
He's come in as basically part of the team that actually is creating a strategy. You see, what's happening at United, and it's like many clubs, is they're trying to create an ethos that is over and above one coach or one manager. There's a style of playing, and therefore you might change managers, but you're not changing the whole infrastructure of the football team. And we're going through that, and I actually think we didn't get that right under Amorim, and therefore it hasn't bedded in properly. And I think they've got to take some responsibility.
Right. Let's go back to briefly. I think trying to make football too complicated sometimes. You've got to remember that these lads playing in a football team, even if they're the top stars, most of them aren't the sharpest tool in the box. No. It comes down to, and this apparently going back to Celtic, apparently the coach there, Martin O'Neill's right-hand man, is the main man when it comes to coaching. Martin O'Neill probably just says those calm words in the dressing room, and he manages to get people, like Keane says, leaning forward, the stars. Just a few quiet, calm words, but saying the right things. All this complicated structures. Footballers, I think, are quite simple people, really, at the end of the day. They're good with their feet. Some of them are better with their heads. But at the end of the day, They just want to be motivated.
And therein lies the challenge, right? Which is if you've got somebody who's you don't think has done it at the top level, right? Either as a manager or a player. If you've got somebody who is closer to you in age than other people, right? Maybe you're thinking, where's the respect? And then you've got the issue of potentially communication. Is it when it comes to being a manager or a head coach, actually fundamentally it's about the ability to motivate, the ability to have relationships, the
Yeah.
ability to handle that side of it more than the technical side of
Well,
football.
let's put this back to Dom. Right, Dom, is in that kind of business world. If staff know there's huge amounts of structural management above the people actually working on the floor, I think that's a bit like, I bet they think, oh God, loads of people are getting paid, all that, Whereas do they see Dom coming in, and talking to them and motivating them, I think they'll want to perform better than knowing that there's huge management structures above them, complicating matters. They want to see, they know that Dom's the kind of puppet master, but I bet they want Dom to say those words and come and see them and inspire them and motivate them. I personally think all this complicated structure, players that just aren't interested. They want someone like Fergie, someone like Klopp to come in and go, let's go and beat these guys. You know what I mean?
Pep's the main man. I think he probably calls himself a coach. I don't know, but he isn't. He's a manager, isn't he? He'll be picking his. Don't think for 1 minute he's not picking his own players. He'll have a say in everything, but he has a good number two normally, and that's been Maresca, Arteta before. This makes his own managers. We've now got the Liverpool guy who I think is he's changing the style of play. So they obviously have a way in it. But United's complication is they're trying to build a hierarchy above it that just is not. It's not flat structures is what you're talking about there. And you look at Jason Wilcox and you think about his career. He won a title with Blackburn Rovers and he was a decent Premiership winger. And then he's ended up coming through the academy at City as the academy director. Then ended up leaving City and going to Southampton to be a director of football, and then going from there to United as a director of football. Now, I can only assume they've done it because they felt that he wanted to take him with all of the City experience. But is it working? It doesn't look like it yet, does it?
Laurie Whitlow did a piece in The Athletic about Jason Wilcox, and actually it's worth reading. But I'm going to leave it with this, right? Because I think we've often said who would be a football manager. And there was an interesting stat in The Athletic. I think I read it this morning or yesterday. And it says of the 96 managers or head coaches in charge of teams across Europe's top 5 leagues, only 12, and that's 5 in England, 4 in Spain, 2 in France, and 1 in Germany, none in Italy, have been in situ for more than 3 years. More than 3 years, right? Only a further 10, and 4 of them are in France, 2 in England, Spain, and Germany, and none in Italy have been in situ for between 2 and 3 years. And of the 96 clubs, just under half have changed their coach in the past 12 months. Half of the teams in those leagues, 96 teams, half of them have changed their coach in the last 12 months. Now, that is an incredible amount of churn, right? And some of those, Rangers, Forest, West Ham, have done so at least twice in a season. Now, you look at that and you turn around and say, football as an industry has an issue with management, has an issue either in the pipeline, in the talent stream, or in owners who get very dodgy fingers, can afford to get rid of managers more easily than anything else, so they swap them out. But I would say you look at that and you say football has actually got an issue at the heart of its culture and the heart of its industry around management.
I also think that, just briefly, that we've now got such huge squads. How are you going to keep everyone happy? And if it's like this Man U at United, if you're not playing, you're not happy. Case is one of those fabulous footballers that seems to be happy even if he's sitting on the bench, knowing that he'll get 10 minutes. But I'm sorry, most footballers want to be playing football.
And that's the skill of man management at the end of the day. And it's the skill of rotation and all of that, which is a real skill and a dark art.
And I just think on that what you've got is, not all of them, but we would name a load of ex-players who were in these management structures. we're not arguing with people's football knowledge. That is not necessarily what is needed to be a great leader.
No.
I honestly believe that you could take somebody, I could never prove this, that you could take someone from an industry who's got an incredible cultural leadership style and stick him in football. And as long as he's surrounded by people that know football, would do really well.
Well, Dom, I've actually started penning something. I'm thinking of doing a podcast, which is I actually think the world in general, and it's not just in football, there is an issue, a crisis in leadership, an absolute crisis. And in the world of politics, in the world of business, in the world of sport, we are in a crisis of leadership, and we're in a very big transition between people who are almost, the Trumps of this world with no content. It's all about style and it's all about big message, versus people who are real architects, real knowledgeable about the fine detail of their business, but may not be very good at the art of articulation, for example, and bullies. Often. So anyway, we could talk all day on that, but it's always an interesting discussion on the extra time edition of Theatres of Dreams. You've been listening to Don Bars from Bars Towers, Richard Irvine, and myself, Rod Maxwell. We'll be back hopefully next week with more impressions, more reflections on the world.
And maybe you might have come up with a name by next week. For Man United's manager.
I'm going for process over just targeting names, Richard.
I don't know him. Is he Turkish champion?
I'm a man of process. I might put myself forward, to be honest with you, because I've got a bad memory, and I could honestly say to people in press conferences, I have no recollection of that. I have a great recollection of the last 60 minutes of this. Always great to speak to you guys. Take care. Have a great weekend. And wherever you watch your football, enjoy.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.